Honestly, I could probably do a Final Fantasy Tactics Advance review and nobody would know the difference.
You still forgot Onimusha Tactics.
Okay. I'll do Onimusha Tactics. But, honestly, what's the difference? Hey friends, I'm Pragmatik, and today we continue into part 2 of Oni Month. This time with another spin-off that you might be familiar with. If you've ever played a certain grid-based, turn-based RPG for the PS1 or the Game Boy Advance, you might be thinking of Final Fantasy Tactics. But little do some know that Capcom actually developed a game just like it, known as Onimusha Tactics. But even though it's very similar in appearance and in some types of gameplay, there are elements that separate it from any of these types of games you may have played before. So let's get into it.
Onimusha Tactics was both published and developed by Capcom. It's refreshing to see Capcom make something that is usually out of their wheelhouse. And considering that Final Fantasy Tactics Advance and Onimusha Tactics were released just months apart, it's hard to claim that they just borrowed elements. I may joke about them being identical, but with a closer analysis, you'll see that they're actually very much different. Imagine my surprise when my middle school best friend offered me this game as a trade, which, at the time, I didn't even know was a thing. One of my favorite franchises given a spin from one of the most engaging genres? Sign me up! Onimusha Tactics released nearly a year after Onimusha 2, which might suggest they were both in close development. This would make sense as Onimusha Tactics features characters from Onimusha 2, but doesn't lead you into the same narrative you might be expecting. No, this game serves as an alternate telling with a brand new protagonist. You play as Onimaru, as his hometown is attacked by the ever-growing Ginma army. Which is the way Onimusha 2 starts out, but hear me out. Onimaru on his own doesn't stand a chance against the Ginma, but when gifted the Oni Gauntlet passed down from his mother, he finds himself to be descended from the ancient Oni clan, and with his awakened powers, now leads the charge against Nobunaga's army of Ginma, which I have to say, stuffing the opening narrative in the tutorial may just be one of the quickest forms of exposition I've ever seen. The plot is basically the same as it always is. Nobunaga has returned, is slowly taking over town after town, and it's up to you and your growing party to put a stop to him. What just starts out with you and your sassy sister soon grows into a ton of chance encounters with friends and strangers alike, and soon you'll find yourself with characters like Obaro, Bumaru, Kabuki, and Ahega, just to name a few, most of which you won't care about once you get the Onimusha 2 cast of Magoichi, Eke, and Kotaru. With each character comes a proficiency for each weapon. Some can use swords, which don't strike very far but do a lot of damage, some can use axes, which are also like swords. Spear users do a little less damage but can reach up to 2 squares and can damage multiple targets if they are lined up. Archers or marksmen can fire arrows or guns from a distance, and there are a few others, like throwing shurikens and staves. And even though some characters use the same items, the abilities they learn might be different. Like Okuni here is a pikesman, but also learns some really good healing spells. These differences in abilities and weapons give each character a lot of worth and playability. But as far as plot worth goes, every original character is pretty heavily overshadowed by the characters from Onimusha 2, since they are involved more in the cutscenes, and one of them is destined for a bigger purpose in the game. But that said, every other character does get involved in the plot in one way or another, and in most cases, every character is pretty balanced, so no one character feels overpowered, save for Onimaru. But with all these characters, 4 of them hold a lot of importance, as they are the ones who have been selected by the Divine Beast. Once the gems the beasts belong to are found and combined with each one of the characters, only then can Nobunaga be taken down. I kinda like this because these beasts also kind of call back to the puzzles in Onimusha 2. I'd give this game a lot more credit if you could choose which character got the gem. This would give the game a whole other level of playability, but I could see how this would have added so much more work, what with ability changes and dialogue options.
Onimusha Tactics does a great job of taking elements from the mainline series and implementing them into this game, giving it its own unique, fresh take on this genre.
The usual format that these 3/4 camera grid-based strategy games are known for are prevalent in Onimusha Tactics, but it's what the Onimusha format has already built and established that gives this game its own unique blend of gameplay. For starters, gold is non-existent for this game. You don't have to stress about buying whichever weapon for whichever character. In its place is a forging system. When you defeat certain types of Genma, you're given different types of gems, which can be combined together to make all types of weapons, armors, accessories, and healing items. Pretty much anything you use comes from the forging system, and with that comes enhancing the items you make, which comes directly from the Onimusha playbook itself. Alongside the gems you get by defeating Genma are collected souls. If you've played any Onimusha game, this should be familiar to you. Defeating Genma, performing criticals, or a successful Isin will lead you to a lot of souls, which you can use to enhance certain weapons you forge. But not everything can be enhanced. There are some weapons that can be found from defeating enemies, but when compared to weapons that can be enhanced and strengthened, these will be the weapons of choice for the duration of the game. Another Onimusha staple is the ability to Isin, or Isin, however you say it, enemies to instantly kill them. Every turn order, one of your characters might strike a pose. If this happens, you can select that option from the battle menu, which will basically make them counter any enemy stupid enough to try and strike you. These aren't the same as criticals, as those can happen at random, whereas this move allows you to do it when it becomes available. It's a cool ability, but I didn't find myself using it very often during my playthrough. With all the aforementioned mechanics that make up Onimusha Tactics, it really does make for a unique playthrough. But when comparing this to the other games of this genre, this one comes off feeling the easiest. I've heard it best described as being an entry-level game, and I can agree with that. There's almost no punishment in this game, and coming from a genre that prides itself on permadeath and losing progress, saying Onimusha Tactics comes without any punishment is not a light statement. For starters, there's absolutely no permadeath. Once I figured that out, I found myself being way more reckless with strategy because I knew the consequences would be minimal. With games like Fire Emblem or Final Fantasy Tactics, every move has to be planned carefully, so you don't end up endangering one of your units to where you have to start the battle all over again. In Onimusha Tactics, screw it. Send them out like lambs to the slaughter. They'll be back. But let's say you do get a little too reckless and end up losing the battle. Surely there is a punishment of having to restart the fight all over again from your last save? Well, not exactly. While you do have to restart the fight, any experience or abilities you gained in the fight is retained, and it just treats the situation like you exited the battle and went back in. Not like you had to reload a save data state and start from scratch. So even losing doesn't really take much from you. Onimusha Tactics also lacks that ability depth that a lot of the other games carry. Having the abilities at hand to increase defense or speed is about all there is to it, and even those abilities are pretty overpowered. For example, using Defender Mode, an ability that ups the defense for a character of your choice, boosts them up so much that they take so little damage. It's insane. This also makes defending at the end of your turn, or even to choose which way you're facing to reduce the hit percentage, non-existent. Add on the fact that there is no turn order based on your character's stats. Your whole unit moves as one, and man, if that doesn't make everything easier. Onimusha Tactics definitely loses a lot of the difficulty and challenge that comes with this genre. And you know what? I'm kind of okay with it. The original Final Fantasy Tactics is my second favorite game of all time, but I'll be damned if some of the battles stress me out, because I don't want to lose a character. Having a game that takes out the stress of permadeath and save states isn't a bad thing to have every once in a while. But if you're looking for a deep, engaging challenge with deep core mechanics that make every move essential to your victory, Onimusha Tactics isn't going to be your game. The story is pretty engaging, being more unique than your usual Onimusha plotline, with every battle having some kind of cutscene. Whether or not you feel the characters are engaging is up to you. Personally, I feel a lot of them just get thrown in here and there, and they don't get a lot of involvement as others. Also, they made Magoichi kind of an idiot, which feels like a stark contrast to the stoic, well-read marksman I'm familiar with from Onimusha 2.
It would be better to read them all at once.
The dialogue can be kind of basic itself sometimes, with one scene introducing a boss character only for the boss himself to basically say the exact same thing that the title did. But as far as the writing goes, it can be pretty funny and witty. Some of the interactions and one-liners the characters drop throughout the cutscenes definitely made me chuckle a time or two. For what Onimusha Tactics is, I feel it's more than worth playing. With a playtime of about 7 to 10 hours, it's not something that's going to take your days away from you, but will definitely be something you can enjoy. If there was one complaint I had, it was not understanding the menu system at the beginning, with these slots here representing your weapon, armor, accessory, and items you can hold. I definitely started a few battles knowing that I had herbs, but getting confused that no one had them in their item menu when I clicked it. It wasn't until figuring out that these bottom slots were how you would put the items that it began to make sense. Not a big deal, but something the game could have explained to you. It was refreshing to see Capcom take a spin on a different genre than what the Onimusha series was cozy with. To see Onimusha in this new light is welcome, and I'd even encourage a second game if ever there was interest. Where Onimusha Tactics lacks challenge and difficulty, it makes up for it in pure fun and engaging gameplay. I definitely recommend it more than Blade Warriors. Thanks for watching. Hey guys, thanks for checking out my review of Onimusha Tactics for Oni Month. I've got a bit of a cold, but I'll definitely have the last video out soon, so be sure to keep an eye out for it. In the meantime, hit that like button as it helps me out, and consider subscribing if you're new. Keep it safe, and keep it practical.